Hey there, welcome back to Summit. Uh, we're talking about something very important that a lot of investors talk about. They want to get into, or they're already doing it, or they're accidentally doing it. Katie, you're a long distance real estate investor, right?
I am indeed. And it was kind of accidental. I mean, this is how I got into real estate investing. We moved and we kept our primary. I feel like a lot of people are in that boat, especially depending on where you are, how the market is. But
Yeah,
you also invest out of state.
you're one, and I'm one. I think we're a little bit qualified to talk about this, but
A little
it
bit,
feels
a little
like
bit.
everybody, they feel like they're priced at other market. They're it's just too expensive. That there's things going on in their market that they don't like, or cash flow, the grass is greener on the other side. There's lots of reasons why people want to do this, but your way to do it is honestly probably one of the better ways to do it. If you're gonna do it, accidentally tripping into it sometimes can be great. But you have a lot of lessons learned, I'm sure, which we'll get into. But my name is Anson Young. I'm an agent and investor here in Denver. And with me, as always, is the amazing Katie Lawrence. Katie, what do you do?
I'm also an agent and investor, and I'm in the Fraser, Colorado area. We do long-term rentals. We've done flips similar to Anson. That's kind of how we got to know each other. I kind of stalked him, and he was doing a little bit of what we were doing. And now we're in the Fraser, Colorado area and investing here and building my business up here. But today it's all about out of state.
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna go through some slides, and then we're also gonna go through, um, we're just gonna talk about stuff, which is great. But
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, so Summit. So our ethos here is to acquire knowledge from like-minded people, get actionable tips, tactics, and takeaways. Um, so it's not always Katie and I. Sometimes it's Katie and I and a guest, and we'll bring on lenders and have more of those as well, and obviously help each other to climb to the next level and have that inspiration. So you have the actionable tactics and inspiration. I mean, what could be better than that? Um, we introduced ourselves here. Here's some contact info, I guess, if you want to call one of us. Go for it. So, Katie, why don't you walk us through some of this?
Yeah. So again, investing out of state. A lot of people do it to build wealth beyond your backyard. I really liked that. So a few things we'll chat about today is why people invest out of state and what to look for in that market, the systems and processes that you should have in place and that I've learned the hard way in a few situations, building your team, understanding your numbers, and planning your exit strategy. I feel like this is not as talked about. You really need to understand, like, am I holding this for a long time? What is my exit strategy? And then we'll kind of wrap it up with key takeaways.
Sounds good. Well, I guess we can start with the
Why?
why. Like, why the heck would you want to do that? Um, And it's true because, I mean, literally, opportunity doesn't live where you live. Sometimes opportunity lives a state or 10 states away, or across the other side of the world. Some people obviously invest out of country.
Mm.
Um, so I guess we could just say long distance or out of state. But high cost local markets, that's us pretty much in a nutshell,
Mhm.
right, Katie?
Oh, yes. Yes. Again, Fraser, Colorado, a very high cost of living. It's really more of a second home market. And Denver. I mean, Denver has it's one of the most expensive in the nation, actually. So if you're
Yeah.
trying to get into investing, it's kind of a hard market to get into. So this is why I think a lot of Denver people look elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, the number one thing is like, it's too expensive here. My dollar goes so much further in the Midwest or
Yep.
the Sun Belt or wherever else. That's usually the number one thing. Or cash flow is higher over there, so it's lower cost of purchase plus
Mhm.
higher cash flow equals you know like I'm gonna start looking over there for sure. But accidental
Absolutely.
landlord, I know someone like this, Katie.
Yes, again, we ended up moving to Denver. We were in a great area right outside. Philadelphia, which is a major metro area, and we kept the property. This is kind of making us an accidental landlord. We actually pulled equity out of that townhouse to purchase in Colorado, and then we just kept it. Again, I knew the area well. We had people in place, which again, we'll talk about team members and things. But yeah, I feel like this is a lot of people. They have a lower interest rate on that property, so they don't want to sell it.
Yep.
I actually have helped multiple clients in the past 2 years do this because they locked in at, sub 4 and they wanted to keep it. So that's definitely a prevalent investing strategy that I see.
Absolutely. And familiarity ties right in because you left a place where you have a lot of these connections. A lot of investors I talk to, kind of the first market that they think about is, where their parents live or where
Yep.
one of their brothers lives, or like I
Hometown.
got 27 cousins who live around, Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so they think that familiarity, the connections, the local kind of boots on the ground we'll talk about a lot, will help them. And generally, yeah, they're right. But obviously, you got to choose the right people to help you out. Since you're, thousands of miles away, you want someone you can implicitly trust to, kind of handle some of the day-to-day stuff if they're doing that, or be reliable if they're going to go be, checking on it once a month or whatever it is, the arrangement that you have. But you have familiarity
Absolutely.
back east because you're from there, right?
Yes, absolutely. We lived there for years. And I'm just going to add that just because you have cousins or friends or family members, your cousin doesn't replace the processes that you need to put in place. I feel like that can sometimes oh, well, I have people who can take care of it. Well, do you have a contract with that person? At least a mutual understanding that once a month this needs to be done? You still need to kind of set expectations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just a little tip because again, I not necessarily learned that the hard way. I was very lucky. My mother-in-law was actually a property manager, so I ended up
Oh,
paying her. Again, don't take advantage. Treat this like a business, right? I mean, this
right.
is a
Right.
business. So
Yeah.
I would just
I
make
like,
sure that you
yeah,
have stuff in place.
I like that a lot. Because people do feel like they can just be like, I got those 27 cousins. Of course they're
Mm-hmm.
going to help me out. That's not really running a professional business, right? There's no
No.
businesses that run off of just favors and family connections of like, hey, we see each other like once a year at the family reunion or Thanksgiving. By the way,
Absolutely.
can you also go do this thing that I need that makes me money that's not going to make you
Yes.
any money? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of silly. But the next one I really like as well, uh, diversification, which is just spreading your eggs across multiple
Mm-hmm.
baskets. Being all in on one market, like, sounds great. It feels good. Like I was in the Denver market for a long time.
Yep.
I know the area. I'm familiar. But if something happens in Denver, Denver's probably a little bit too big to have something catastrophically like happen unless a meteor hits us or something. But
God, you never know.
if you're in like a small, yeah, right. If you're like in a small town and you're relying on the Air Force Base or Walmart or whatever the big market center is in town, there's no guarantee that that's
Mm-mm.
not going to go away, sometime soon. I've seen Air
Yep.
Force bases or military bases close, and there goes like the whole pretty much real estate market in that area. If you're just one heavily invested in that area, and two, that's your only, diversification, then, you'll be on the hook for all that when the fallout comes and, the base closes or Walmart moves, 30 miles away or something. That's going to
Absolutely.
be on you to suffer through that pain for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, diversification, just like you would a portfolio, a stock market portfolio. I think that's just a good mindset to have.
Yeah.
And then the last lifestyle goals, choosing a market where you might want a vacation. I have a few friends who do that currently. They have a house in Mexico and then a house in Arizona, and they short-term rent it, but they also are able to use it during those shoulder seasons. If you have family in that area, and hey, I'm in Fraser, it's very cold here. There's like 6 months of winter. Again, love it, but do I want to do that forever? So we've talked about investing somewhere where we have family. Which North Carolina, it's a lot milder climate. So again, lifestyle goals can sometimes dictate what you want to, where
what
you
you're
want to
doing.
invest.
Yeah, what you're doing. Yeah, for sure. Building your business around your life is something that I've bought on board with for a long time, and
Oh yeah.
I know you have as well. Like you'll take your ski days and
Yes.
you build your
Lifestyle
life around
design.
that. Yeah. So why do this if you're just creating another
Job.
70-hour a week grind for yourself? If you can have a property in North Carolina or near family, and you can use it and it pays for itself while you're not using it, I mean, that's a huge reason why
The
people do this
dream.
out of state thing, for sure.
Absolutely. Leveraging that real
So
estate.
yeah, right. I know you like those 70-hour a week grinds, but
Oh, no, I
the
quit
rest
corporate
of
America in 2021. No, thank you.
yeah, right. So when it comes to I guess if you're intentionally choosing a market and you're
Hmm.
not accidentally landlording it,
Like
uh,
you've
yeah,
intentionally chosen the market. So yeah, you're very versed to speak to this.
yeah. These are some of the things that tick the boxes, at least for me and my company. And there's 100 ways to do this. There's probably
Hmm.
100 more matrices that you can go after, but these are the really important ones. So job growth and industry stability, I touched on it a little bit, but who are the major employers? Are there enough of them in town to sustain what you're trying to do? If it's just the college town, that may not be enough, at least for me. Like the college could get funding cut, it could burn down. Like who knows what can happen if you have
Hmm.
if you have one major thing in that city. You are kind of risking it, honestly. If there's 2 or 3 or 4 major employment centers or sectors, healthcare, the college, I mean, Walmart is huge. It's probably one of the bigger
Bentonville is
employers in
actually
a lot of
a very good
Florida.
market.
Yeah, exactly. A military base,
Hmm.
uh, if all of those things exist, you're hedging your bets a lot more than just having like one major employer. And are the jobs growing in the area? So that job growth is pretty huge as well.
Hmm.
You have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's similar to, making sure that you have options when those vacancies come up, making sure that you're going to have a lot of people as opposed to just, oh, hey, I work at the mill, but the mill just shut down. So
Right,
again, it's just, I think, ensuring that your tenants will have longevity in their careers, which I guess you can never ensure, right? But
right.
it's just, it's a good thing to hang your hat
Yeah.
on.
Or I guess some sort of job speculation as well. Like,
Mm,
is this area great? But then there's also going to be like a $2 billion car factory that's coming in.
mm,
Like,
yep.
uh, there's a lot of opportunity there, but I want to make sure that the market itself is stable without that. With
Mm,
the new thing like a chip plant or an auto factory expansion or whatever going into the area is just like a cherry on your sundae instead of being like the whole sundae. Like I'm not going to go into a market speculating that this thing that was announced is going to
yep.
happen because
Yep.
those things fall apart all the time. So um, and then population and migration trends.
Mm,
This is huge too. Is
mm-hmm.
the actual population growing, not just the job sector growing, but are people moving there? Um, I don't want to invest into a market where they have a net population loss.
Yep.
People who are moving out aren't usually great tenants because they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
You want people moving to the
They
area.
gone.
Yeah, they're just not good. Um, who would have thought, right? People who don't live there aren't great for renting there. But yeah, is there enough things that are attracting people
Mm-hmm.
to the market? Uh, and is the population actually growing? Philly is probably always growing. Denver is
Yes.
always growing,
Yes. Yeah, the
right?
major metropolitan areas, obviously, and then look at the suburbs around those areas because a lot of times, people are investing in those suburbs. Are there train stations nearby so people can access jobs?
Yeah,
So I think that's just a great metric to look at, and it's easier to find than you think. So there's some tips at the bottom of the data that you can use. The United States Postal Service has information. U-Haul has information about like who's moving to and from. So just do a little research around, who's moving to and from those areas where you want to invest.
yeah, that's a really good point. Like there are data, or there is data out there that you can tap into, like the
Mm.
U-Haul data, which if you're not like a geek in real estate, you don't even know that exists. Like they track who's moving from A to B. Like, so they know kind of what's going on, which is great.
Yeah.
But affordability is an issue. Uh, you know, would I want to like go into the San Francisco market where, price of properties is super high and then the rents actually don't kind of match or pencil out?
Mm.
You're choosing an area that's obviously making sense for the price versus rent ratio.
Yep.
Um, what is the cash flow potential? What do these deals actually look like on paper? So once you've kind
Yeah.
of honed in on an area, like then you're like really poking around and figuring out what areas, properties cost $200,000 in this area. They rent for 2,300 a month. Well, that's on paper, like so
Yeah.
far, so good. Like that's
Pretty
over
good.
1%. Um, and the cash flow potential makes sense there. Um, when you're an accidental landlord, like, did you guys factor in kind of anything when you're going through this process of like, hey, we're moving to Denver, we're going to rent this place out? Obviously, there's some other factors there, like you lived there.
Absolutely.
There's your down payment was X amount, your interest
Yep.
rate's this, but like
Yep.
when you're moving and making that decision, was the price versus rent ratio, or I guess the potential cash flow a factor of like this makes
Yes, it
sense?
it was. I didn't dive into it as deep as I would have now, but hey, this is my mortgage. It was, relatively low, and here's, what like it would at least rent for that. That being said, over the years, Conshohocken. That's what the name of the town is. It's been it's slower growth than the Denver area. So I've really tapped into, okay, what are average market rents doing? Are they continuing to increase? That's kind of our strategy with like, are we holding on to this for longer? When I first moved, it was more of like, this is a great area, it'll always rent. And that's
Right.
about as much research as I did. So again, as I've held on to it, there's been tenant turnover. I've made sure to look at these kind of things because that it really matters. Is this a stagnant rental growth area based on, mortgage and all the things? So
Yeah.
because the
And
taxes are extremely high there. So I don't cash flow a ton there. So
right.
again, it's good to know if it's stagnant rental growth and the taxes keep, that's a problem, right?
That's
So
a problem. Um, and I guess like there are people who are just stuck with their house. There's people who try to sell their house, they can't sell it for one reason or the other. They're kind of stuck with it, so they turn to renting it. Some of them are losing, they're cash flow negative, but it still makes sense versus taking like I guess a huge
sure.
hit on selling it for a huge discount.
Yep.
They're okay with taking two 500 $200 $500 a month, whatever it is that they're still having to make up for as a
Sure.
difference. So it's not always like I said, it's an accidental thing. So
Sure.
it
And
can't
again,
always
run your
be.
numbers every
Yeah,
year, right? I mean,
sure.
make sure that it still is making sense because if it doesn't, and hey, the housing market has turned around and it's a good time to sell, maybe it makes sense to sell it too. I think a lot of real estate comes down to, once you get further along in the journey, it gets to like, what are your personal goals? So,
Right.
which is again, we don't need to like get into that, but I think running the numbers on an annual basis to make sure that the numbers still make sense makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like more than just looking at the, the Zillow rent estimate, checking on that once a year is probably not enough research to figure out if the market's turned enough to maybe bump up the rent, or
Yep.
if a tenant's moving out, obviously that's a perfect time for reevaluating and
Yes.
see if you can maybe not lose as much money. But next one on the list, crime and school ratings definitely affects the tenant
Mm,
quality, property value, your costs. If there's like, chronic vandalizing in the neighborhood, it's gonna affect your
yeah.
your numbers for sure. Um, so and there's no like easy answer here. There's great areas that
Yeah.
have some crime. There's like, there's pristine neighborhoods that have cars broken into them every weekend.
Yep.
It's going to happen. It's just going to be a matter of like what you're comfortable with. Being a long distance landlord or long distance investor, what does that look like?
Yep.
Um, and definitely a factor, something that we've pulled on every market that we go into, is kind of figuring out like what's going on there, and that's just one piece of the picture of
Yeah.
like what is going on the street level
Yeah.
there. um and obviously demand, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go into an area, or you possibly don't want to accidentally, get into this business if there's nobody around to rent your properties. If vacancy rates are sky high, maybe
Yeah.
it does make sense, instead of becoming an accidental landlord, take a hit on, selling your property for less if there's literally, a huge amount of vacancy rate. um but it's obviously something that you want to check if you are purposely going into an area, making sure that there are enough renters for uh,
Yep.
for your business. Like when turnover happens, is it 10% vacancy rate? Is it 5? Is it,
Yeah.
I think everywhere is pretty much under 5 at this point. Um, and making sure that you're factoring that in, right? When you're doing your numbers, like what is the
Yep.
vacancy rate in the area? How are the rents appreciating, or are they falling? Like in Denver right now,
Yes.
rent prices are falling.
I was just about to
So
say this is the first year some of our long-term rentals we've had to knock off $50 of the rent because they are stagnant. And in Conshohocken, they are growing.
bro,
So
yeah,
again, markets can change. So similar to, all of a sudden it's slowed down, selling homes. Rentals are absolutely the same. So just tuning into that on an annual basis. Or when you have tenant turnover, making sure that you're looking at those numbers,
yeah,
and that you're in line with what other comps are doing.
yeah, absolutely. Being in the know will also help you when you go when you go to rent these, because like you said, if you're not up on the market and you're still trying to rent for last year's prices, but this year's different.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
like,
yeah. We didn't want vacancy though, so we lowered and we filled it, and we only had
yeah,
2 weeks of vacancy. As opposed
yeah,
to,
and
I
like,
know another girlfriend who invests. She held at her price and she had a 3-month vacancy. I'm like, was it worth it? I don't know.
yeah. And you're saying like a $50 difference, was that example?
Mm-hmm.
So lowering it by $50, making it a little bit more appealing for the incoming, or the renter pool out
Being in
there.
tune with what the market's doing.
Yeah. So you're talking $600 a year versus your friend who lost 3 months of rent, which
Yeah.
is not
Over
$600 for
$9,000.
him. Yeah.
Over
Um,
$9,000. So I'm like,
yeah. And even if you had
"Ooh."
to double or triple the
Yeah.
amount that you lowered your price by, so if you went by $100 or $150, you're
Yep.
still losing way less than $9,000. That's for sure.
Yeah. And
I
you
like
still keep your criteria with the tenant screening and all that, which we don't need to get into. But anyway, yes.
right, right. Um, so speaking of screening tenants, I mean, it's right here on the next slide. So we're talking
Yes.
about we're talking about systems and processes of distance demanding some sort of
Mhm.
structure to make it successful. And so, yeah, if you want to walk through
Absolutely.
these, yeah,
Absolutely. So When you're dealing with, and this is just, a long-term rental, a long-term rental or a mid-term rental, you're really going to need to have a leasing and maintenance system in place. How are you dealing with tenant turnovers? How are you dealing with, the systems that you need to maintain? If something goes wrong with the property, how are you collecting rent? How are you handling repairs? Being a little bit further away makes it not more difficult. It just means that you have to have a process in place. These are a few things that I learned, not the harder way, but just I definitely started putting processes in place after I had that first vacancy, because it's just, again, you got to treat it like a business. Communication is also something that is really important. Letting your if you're going to self-manage, letting your landlord, or excuse me, your tenants know that, hey, I'm X, I live X. Here is how you handle emergencies. Here is how you handle, if something pops up. In my Conshohocken rental, we have an annual inspection. I let every new tenant know that this is going to happen. I have a maintenance person who comes in. I will coordinate that with you, but this is just something that is necessary every year to maintain my rental license. So communication is really key. And that's, in this day and age, we almost can communicate too much. My goodness. But just make sure that that those lines of communication are open and that they understand that as a tenant, because you're in Colorado and they're in PA. So letting them know that they can contact you, and you want them to contact you. You do not want deferred maintenance to go by the wayside.
Right.
And then legal and compliance, making sure that you understand the laws in your state, in your city. They are very different here in Colorado than they are in PA. So understanding that, making sure that your lease is up to date, and things change annually, especially here in Colorado. Making sure that you understand that, making sure that you're understanding the taxes, the things that you can write off from a rental perspective. So talk to your CPA. This is not legal or tax advice. I think that's a huge thing that a lot of the clients who are accidental landlords have figured out. So I try to guide them with that. Like, hey, if you're going to hang on to this property, make sure that you talk to your CPA about X, Y, and Z. Just understand the legalities there. And then property access, especially for turnovers, especially for maintenance. Is there going to be a lockbox? Is there a door code? Do you coordinate that with your tenants? I know it seems kind of obvious, but make sure that you understand and put that in your lease. If there is a maintenance problem that you need to coordinate and they're not around, and you have a way that a maintenance person can access a property, make sure that you're putting that in the lease, that, hey, within 24 hours, especially if it's an emergency, because people work, right? They're busy. And then home systems, making sure that you have a reliable HVAC person, a reliable plumber, these kind of things, maybe even like a Nest thermostat or water leak sensors. Some of that is just, put that in your house manual and make sure that, your tenants understand that if there are emergencies, go to these people first. I've kind of already vetted them. It's easier if you've lived there and you know them, but there's so many good people out there. Go onto forums, ask recommendations from people, read reviews, ask for references, and make sure that you have a list of people you can call in emergency, because you don't want to be scrambling if you need to call them before you have them.
Well, and let's talk real quick, because you have a unique structure out there, right? You're talking about having your own kind of vendor team or vendor list.
Yep.
Talk about, I guess, your structure of like how the property management is happening for you, and then also like who's handling what in some of these scenarios.
Yeah, so I self-manage all of my rentals in Colorado, as well as the one right outside Philadelphia. So I have on my house manual emergency numbers. And when my tenants first moved in, I let them know that, hey, there's going to be an annual inspection. Here's the person and their number who will coordinate that. But if there's, a plumbing emergency, usually the emergencies involve plumbing, or there was a dryer vent that was kind of clogged, and that's a fire hazard. So now I just know that every 2 years I have it cleaned and it's not an issue. I have vendors that I've used in the past or ask because we're agents. We have a nationwide pool that we can ask people, but I also have friends in the area and I've asked them if something random like, oh, a dryer vent needs to be cleaned out. Who would you use for that? I've also done my own research of just, again, a random thing pops up. Oh, the dishwasher is, doing this weird thing. And so you kind of do your own research or get recommendations. And then I put all of that in the house manual. So every time an annual inspection pops up, I will send almost like a template, because it happens annually, a template of annual inspection time. Here's, Butch. That's my maintenance guy's name, obviously, Butch. Here's Butch's number. Would you like me to coordinate, or would you want to coordinate? Or just let me know times that are available. It's pretty easy, but again, making sure that you have on your calendar that this is going to happen, and making sure that you're alerting your tenants. This is happening annually. This is what needs to happen. And then it's not a surprise for anyone.
Right. I think that annual inspection thing is great. And especially if it's written into the lease, or written into the lease and in your communication, right? Your house manuals communication. I'm sure you're communicating with them on top of that.
It's needed for my rental license. So if, people are watching in Denver is requiring that as well. If you're a Denver landlord, you need to have inspections. And I believe they're every 2 years. But similar to PA, it's an annual inspection, which is a good thing. That means somebody's getting in there and maintaining the property. So I'd almost say, if you don't do it annually, do it biannually, that you're just going to hire people and they're going to check the HVAC. They're going to check if you have sprinklers, the sprinkler heads. They're just going to check all the things. Because it really maintains your property.
Yeah. I mean, getting in front of any deferred maintenance too, right?
100%.
So if Butch is going through, he's going to be like, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be painted,
100%.
Before it becomes a bigger problem, of course.
100%. That deferred maintenance. Oh, we had a deck issue. We were going to stain it. And then, I kind of kicked the can. Well, wasps ended up destroying it. And I'm not there, and my clients work constantly. So they're like, oh, well, we're just not using the deck. I'm like, oh, well, why? Oh, there's wasps. I'm like, oh, well, do you want me to send you some wasp spray? They're like, no, I think it's pretty bad. I mean, the deck was falling apart. So
because of wasps.
Because of wasps. I was like, cool. Maybe if I had stained it 2 years ago, I should have, maybe that would have great. Okay.
We have leak sensors, but we don't have any wasp sensors. So, oh man, I do full property management, so I don't want to be involved in any of those things.
No, thank you.
That's not my jam for sure, and it's not for everybody. And so, passing that off to a competent professional in the market, they can handle a lot of those things. I think our maintenance is on a hybrid. I don't fully trust property management for all maintenance things. I think once you've gone through property management a few times, you understand that sometimes the charge for changing a light bulb being $50 or something is a little silly. So some of those are on the tenant to do. We'll reimburse. We'll pay for some of those things, but so it really depends on how you want to do your business. If you don't want to take the 10% cut on rent and have someone else do it, then the KD method is probably for you. And a lot of people self-manage, so it's not my way is the right way, of course.
Sure.
And hitting on the legal and compliance, we were just talking about being really up on what's happening in that market. Since you don't live there, you probably don't get the local news. You're not hearing about this bill that's coming through that's going to change XYZ inside of the rental market. I know a lot of our landlord laws have kind of changed in Denver,
Oh
but
my
that may
gosh.
not, affect all of the areas that you're in. Like
Mm,
you're in the suburbs of Denver for your
yep.
rentals, and some of those may not even uh,
They've not
affect
been
you.
affected yet.
But a Colorado law obviously would,
Yes.
instead of like a Denver law. And then also
Yep.
being up on what's happening inside of, like, if your strategy is short-term rentals,
Mm,
are there things coming down in the future for registration or
yep.
licensing, or are they going away? Like, you definitely want to
Absolutely.
know these things before
Are
you
they capping
jump
them? Is it mandated? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in.
There's a lot of moratoriums, especially in the mountain towns with short-term rentals. So again, just understanding your local rules and regulations and
Totally,
all
totally.
the
Which
things.
which is great. But you're gonna need some people to trust who are in the market. I don't know anybody who really does this without anybody on the ground. Like, I think you have to
Absolutely.
have some people for sure.
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, for sure. And these are the people that we like. And obviously we're both agents, so we're a little bit biased, uh, but having somebody who, especially when you're doing some of the upfront research, agents will have a lot of information
Mm,
that you need. So, having an agent who's an expert on the area, who deals with rentals, who can, pull a lot of the rental comps, or
mm,
pull, being able to, tell you about the vacancy rate, the updated vacancy rates in the area, what they're seeing on the ground. Because sometimes you can look at the data and then you talk to somebody who's on the ground who's like, oh yeah, they're putting in like a new sports stadium like here,
mhm,
and it's going to affect, everything in that area, or traffic's going to be terrible for the next 3 years. Whatever that looks like, it may not just show up on your first at a glance
mhm.
research. So yeah, definitely having a local agent. And since you're an accidental landlord, you probably don't have an agent that you hit up all the time, or maybe you do. I don't know.
I don't. I have a girlfriend who's an agent in the Philadelphia area, which again, real estate is local, so you need to find somebody who's a little bit more local. But I've done, because I am an agent and because I, invest and do the rental thing, I kind of pull my own stats. So I
Yeah,
kind of act as, even though Conshohocken has changed a lot since we've lived there. It's been 11 years. So I would recommend partnering with somebody. And again, that could be somebody you find on a forum, or reaching out to a local agent who has knowledge in that area. But I definitely, again, because I have the tools, at least, do my best
yeah,
to use them for that area.
yeah. And you have the agent knowledge, so like, you could find some of that information, or most of that information, for sure. And if you're not an agent, uh, it, it could be helpful to have one on your team. So even if you're not using one for acquisition, uh, you could pay an agent to do, like rental comps, or
Oh,
some of
sure.
these things that if you feel comfortable relying on an expert, yeah, an
Yeah.
agent in the area should be an expert on what's going on. And getting referrals, like you said, like looking online, or agent finders, like those type of tools can help. But yeah, having one on your team is never hurts. And next in line, sometimes they're the same person, but a property manager or a co-host, they
Yep.
really handle a lot of the heavy lifting. Like, once
Hmm.
basically construction's done, or rehab's done on our properties, it's like handed over basically to them to find the tenants, to get it ready for,
Yep.
for leasing, all of that good stuff. And so having somebody on the ground who handles all that, for some investors, is
Oh, is key. Yeah, I've
can't live
actually
without it.
opened up that part of my business to co-hosts up here in Fraser. Again, it's a second home market. There's a lot of short-term rentals, a lot of seasonal rentals. So I've helped multiple people in the area just do that. Just kind of rent out their places. I'm the boots on the ground from a short-term rental perspective.
Yep.
A lot of my clients are down in Denver, and they to drive up to replace a light bulb, or something like that doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
depending on what kind of strategy you do use, maybe to find, a co-host who has knowledge of the area, might be a little bit more efficient
Totally.
for that, as opposed to like full property management.
Right.
If that works out. And if you're like Anson and you're like, no thanks, full property management is for you.
Yeah. And I think that that's a good hybrid system. Like you don't have to do the full
Yeah.
property management. You can have somebody who co-hosts and is cheaper than a property manager, um, but still can handle some of the lifting there. I know like one of my clients lived in Florida, was an accidental landlord here in
Mm,
Denver. Um, and when that tenant turnover came, he was like, well, let me like look at booking
yep.
a flight. Then, he's like, let me
A
look into all
lot.
that. And I was like, I was just like, dude, I'm like, and I was going to be listing the house anyways,
Yeah.
but I was like, let me handle it. You
Yep.
don't have to fly out here unless you really want to.
Yep.
But, um, but having somebody like me
Yep.
or like you up in Fraser, or somebody in that market who can actually do that. I know a
Yep.
lot of investors who fly out for turnovers, and it's like why? Like
Yeah.
it's so expensive for
Unless you have
that
other
process.
things going on in the area, great. But just that
Yeah,
seems like you can outsource that, right? I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like, "Oh my God, thank you. I don't, like I really can't afford to,
Yeah.
take the time off." And he has a small daughter, and so, you know, like under 1 years old, and he's just like, "I don't want to leave my wife here and all that stuff." And I was just like, it's
Get
literally
it.
like 20 minutes from my house. I can
Yeah.
handle the handoff and the final walkthrough for the tenant.
Yep.
I'm handling some of the other stuff anyways for getting it fixed up and ready
Yep.
to sell. So, but which walks right into the next part, which is contractors and handyman. You uh, obviously reliability. They're fast to respond. They
Yep.
understand what you're doing, who you are,
Yep.
and they're not just like some mom and pop place who like, oh, I'll get you a quote next week, and you have like a tenant who's has their property is flooding or something like that. For you, I guess in your market in Pennsylvania, how did you go about finding your reliable fast response vendors?
Yeah, so the annual inspector, he was somebody that my mother-in-law, who was a property manager for a huge apartment complex, she used him and kind of referred him to me. So for years I used him, and he's just been great, super reliable. Again, just shows up, and it's kind of just an annual thing. Recently though, he's been a little slower to respond. I think he's getting older, so I have had to find other people. Like the dryer vent, I had to kind of, I figured that was something that he could do, but he wasn't getting back to me. And again, you want to be timely with this. If you were going to self manage, it can't just be like, oh well, I'll get to it. Like, you really
Right.
need to make sure that you understand the legality of how you do need to respond, because that's
Ooh,
a thing. You need to
that's a good
respond, and
point. Yeah.
especially if it's like, oh, my fridge broke. If it's something that is like pertinent to the like quality of life, oh, like there's a leak in my house, my hot water is off. Like these are habitat issues. So you
Right.
really need to make sure that you're responding. So I had to do my own research and get some referrals for the dryer vent situation. Again, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but that can cause a fire.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that your tenants know that, okay, you're responding. Like
Right.
you are on this. I will respond within the next couple days. Somebody will be out there.
Right.
I understand life happens, but just put yourself in their shoes. Like, hey, oh, my landlord's halfway across the country. Like, they're not responding to me. Like, that will hurt your tenant turnover too. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't want to stay with people who aren't responding. And another point here is to pay your handyman, especially if you're
Right.
self-managing. I get it. The invoices, I'm working, I've that. Pay them, because you will never hear from them again if you don't. So make
Right.
sure that you're paying the invoices. Again, treat this like a business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, half of the problems here can be just solved by that statement. Just treat
100%.
it like a business. And if you're not, if you don't have people in your market, then getting referrals from the agents, from property
Oh,
managers, from other
100%.
investors, honestly, has been great. Like my electrician or my plumber, I shop those guys out to everybody because I want them to be
Oh,
happy
yeah.
and have plenty of business. Um, investors are typically totally fine with sharing like their rock star vendors because they want those people to, you know, be happy. And if they hear like, oh, Katie sent me, like,
Yeah,
I love Katie.
absolutely.
You know, she, and like in the back of their head, they're like, Katie gives me constant work. Katie pays her bills on time. I
Yep.
never have to face Katie for money. Uh,
And
so
she
they go,
refers me.
man, yeah, and
Yeah.
now I have even more business thanks to Katie. Um,
Oh, you're
great,
welcome.
yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, give me a discount on the next inspection. No, I'm just kidding. All right, lender and your insurance agent. So obviously, if you're acquiring properties in this market, having somebody who understands the local market, your lender,
Mm-hmm.
obviously insurance very much varies by state, by area of the state.
Yep,
So having
region.
somebody who you're talking to before you're even acquiring property there, of
Yeah.
like, hey, what is typical insurance rates in this zip code or these neighborhoods for this size of property, and maybe give a couple of examples so that when you're ready to go from analysis to buying property, you're not
Mm,
then shocked by the actual insurance amounts. You've already kind of ticked off this due diligence. But it's also just good to have these people inside of your market so that, you know, like your lender could be just a nationwide lender who happens to, you
sure.
know, do deals in Pennsylvania or whatever. But insurance varies so much these days.
Oh yeah.
Having somebody who understands that market is going to be huge because, you know, everybody's griping about insurance right now, and I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon.
No.
So
And it
having
depends on the
somebody,
strategy you're doing.
yeah,
Long-term rental insurance is going to be way different than short-term. Or
yeah,
if you're, rehabbing a property. So just
yeah,
making sure that they understand and you're being honest about, hey, like I'm going to be short-term renting this.
yep,
Do you guys even cover that?
yep, exactly. And then definitely bookkeeper, CPA. I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
Um, is like, what do I
Make
do if I'm like making money in New York and I live in Colorado, and how does that work? And it's like, no, don't don't ask me. Ask an actual professional who deals with this on
100%.
a daily basis. Don't ask Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Definitely get somebody who understands your tax situation and how it's going to affect you and what you can and can't do. Um,
Yep.
Otherwise, you're like, I don't know, you're kind of playing with fire if you're not,
Yeah.
if you don't have an actual good like CPA who's giving you great tax advice.
And who understands real estate. That has been when we first started our business, that was a challenge, finding somebody who really understood the long-term capital gains versus short-term capital gains versus like what you can expense versus just make sure that your agent your CPA understands that you are a real estate investor and that you are getting all of those good real estate deductions because there are quite a few. And it
Yeah.
depends on the strategy you're doing too. So talk to your CPA. Don't talk to us about that.
Yeah. Don't talk to me. I'm not a CPA. I have a bonus person on the ground. Not a lot of people talk about this. But so through horror stories from other investors who are doing out of state investments, and my own experience, running remote teams and stuff, there's kind of a third person that you need, or a third party person that you need who can check on the work of people who are
Oh,
incentivized by the transaction. And what I mean by this is your agent, your contractor, your property manager, they're all incentivized by money in some way by this relationship. So your
hmm
agent might gloss some things over in order to get a deal done. Your
mm,
contractor may not fully tell you the truth on where the project is or what needs to be repaired, or um, what's being, you know, what's over the budget or what's under, you know, whatever that looks like. Your property manager is obviously incentivized heavily by repairs. Sometimes, you know, your repair bill can be as much as your property management bill for a month.
mhm.
And a lot of investors, you know, they get blindsided by that. They don't want, they're like, wait, they're, you know, the more things that the property manager can, you know, kind of whip up to repair, you know, the more money they
Means
make, because
they're
they're going to
gonna,
make,
yep,
yeah, they're going to make money on these things. So what do I mean? I mean somebody who's in there who doesn't care because they don't make money on the transaction.
yeah,
They're being paid just to do the one thing. So for me, it's being paid to take pictures and video of the property and give like a small report on like a Google Forms
Yep.
of the properties. They're getting paid for that hour of their time. They don't care if it closes. They don't care if there's 100 repairs that month. They don't care. They don't care if it's the project's on time. They don't care if it burns down tomorrow. Like
Yeah.
they literally don't care about the transaction itself. They're there to do that one job, and that gives me a kind of objective view of what's going on at the property. So while it's under
Great point.
construction, they go through weekly and they take 120 pictures and some video. That way, I know that if the contractor's telling me one thing, and I'm looking at the pictures and the reports
Pictures
from
say
my
another.
then I have a better idea of what's going on the ground. So you
Something's
can
not.
kind of mitigate the risk of
Mhm.
what's going on 10 states away at these properties without going to jump on a plane by like spending $40, hiring somebody to go in there for that hour,
Yep.
take those pictures and upload them to you. They care about that. They don't care about what's going on at the property,
Now,
or they're not incentivized by it.
how did you find that person? Is it like a task rabbit
Yeah.
situation, or is it like a recommendation from someone?
Yeah, it's definitely TaskRabbit
Okay. Yep.
type,
Yep.
like a task service.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, and there's in this economy, but there's you'll get so many responses that you'll have to
Oh
shut it
yeah.
off because you'd be like $40 weekly project to go
Yep.
take pictures on Friday at an address. Like that's easy work,
Oh,
honestly, but
100%.
it's
Yep.
so important when you're sitting 10 states away and in front of your computer and you're just like, what's going on at this property? Like, and if you feel like your contractor is not telling you the full truth or your agent is doing something, like you can at least have another set of eyes on the ground, and it's
Yeah.
well worth the investment for sure. But let's jump into this last section, which is all about your numbers and your strategy. Katie, you want to walk us through some of this?
Sure. Yeah. So numbers, obviously a little bit more intuitive. The exit strategy, I think thinking through that before you even get started, you're like, hold on, wait, but I'm so excited. But I think it's important to think about. So we kind of touched on some of this. Average rents in the area, home prices. These will help your returns, and depending on what kind of investor you are, if you're burring a property, if you're flipping a property, making sure that you are monitoring that market for those trends is really, really important, because that could potentially lead you to an exit strategy. Hey, this is a market that's having decreased appreciation or stagnant rent for the past 2 years. Maybe it's time to get out. Cash flow and capex, making sure that you are saving for these capital expenses that will happen. It might not happen all at once. Like, oh, my roof blew off and I had to replace a water heater, and then I had to replace my whole HVAC system. The chances of that all happening at every single one of your property, but guaranteed something will pop up that you were like, crap, I have to replace that refrigerator. I have to replace that dryer. Oh, by the way, I had to do both of those things in the past like 8 months. So do you have reserves saved for that? That's really, really important. And understanding your cash flow based on that. Again, that can kind of touch to your exit strategy. Hey, like my cash flow keeps going down because this property might need some major renovations, or the taxes keep being raised, and the rental rates are not keeping up. So just it's good to keep in touch with that. Financing costs. This is obviously in a higher rate environment. What will that look like? Down payments. How much do you have for a down payment? That will potentially affect your cash on hand for some of those capex. And if you're going to burr a property, or if you're going to rehab a property, just understanding your financing. ARV, after repair value, and add-ons. Are you over rehabbing a property? Because that is a thing. We have done that in one of our flips. So yes. This drives rent. Like, is this neighborhood really fancy, but you're putting in like, a fridge that doesn't have an ice machine, and it's one of those like 80s fridges that I have. Don't get it twisted. Those are awesome fridges because they never break, but like are you asking for like a really high rent and you're putting in this fridge, or vice versa? You're putting in like amazing, oh my God, I spent $7,000 on all the appliances, but it's an up and coming area and maybe it's not that nice and you're not going to get those. Be aware of like the value add-ons, the ARV after repair value. And then your personal goal alignment. I think we kind of touched on this of like, are you looking for cash flow? Are you looking for appreciation? Do you want to use the property a couple times a year? Make sure that you're factoring that in. Say it's a short-term rental and I want to use it, in July, but is that the busy month? So are you gonna like lose a lot of revenue because of that? So just what's your personal goal with this property and with this strategy?
Yeah. And that's huge. And also knowing, I guess, on top of that, maybe just factoring in what a couple of exit strategies could look like. You're buying in this area for this reason, for a long-term rental, or let's just say, or you're buying in there for the short-term rental. Does this still work as a long-term? Would it work as a midterm? Would it work as room by
100%.
room rental? What would happen if you had to like sell it in a year because something happens? But running all those scenarios up front, no matter what, is important.
Sure.
But long-term, or excuse me, long distance real estate, even more important, I feel.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like knowing exactly what's going on, what the plan is, and going from there. Like we'll underwrite our properties with long-term rentals, because obviously if you're doing like DSCR lending or whatever, you're gonna have to do that.
Yep.
But typically we are doing a higher cash flow strategy. But if worst comes to worst, we have to go fall back on the long term. At least we know that those numbers are solid and that we're totally happy if we had to keep this as a long-term rental. I feel like a lot of people got into vacation markets, into the Tennessee Gatlinburg markets, where where they were solely relying on this vacation market. And once it became like crazy saturated, I feel like everyone I know who got in pulled the cord and got out like 2 years later. So, so be aware of those things, but anyways, I think we covered quite a bit.
We did it. And we'd always love to hear from people. So if you have questions, if you are investing out of state and have some tips, feel free to drop them in the comments.
Yeah, please do. If you're, and let us know like your strategy or what you're doing. Are you doing the vacation hack where you're, you go spend a few weeks in Florida and then, it pays for itself the rest of the year? Like what? Or you're accidental landlord, like our friend Katie here, who's a great landlord, but also accidentally became one when she moved. So
it's on purpose now, but it was accidental.
But yeah, thanks for going through this with us. And if you have any questions, please let us know. But Katie, thanks for being here. And
absolutely, make sure that you subscribe and leave us some comments.
That's right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Oh my gosh.